All right, we are back in the workshop, and today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, chain waxing. How to do it, why you should do it, and why it's the best way to keep your bike running smoothly. Let's get into it. Here's how to wax your chain in 30 seconds. Okay, so first thing first, you need to clean your chain. Once you have a really clean chain, we're gonna dip it into our slow cooker with the wax. We're gonna wait until our wax hits 93 degrees, give it a little swish around on our kebab skewer swisher, and then pull it out, leave it to dry, break all the links, job's a good one. Okay, things that you will need for this. A chain, something to clean it with. Bent kebab skewers for swishing it around in your wax. A slow cooker. A bag of food grade paraffin wax. Right, first step in the how to wax your chain is obviously you need a chain, and we're gonna clean it. We're gonna need some cleaners. Now obviously you can use a commercial cleaner from the likes of Silka or Muck-Off or whoever, but you can also go down to your local hardware store, get yourself some, this is turpentine substitute, but any kind of paint stripper will do. And what we're gonna do, put the chain in a jar with some of that cleaner, give it a little shake like a cocktail. It's gonna get rid of all that grease. Whatever you use, of course, you be responsible with your chemicals. Don't just pour them down the drain or like throw them out into your garden. Check with your local kind of recycling plant or whatever, see what you can do with them. Just be careful, be a good boy. Now the best way to do it, of course, is to have a little receptacle, a couple of jam jars or some sauce jars here. And what we're gonna do is basically put the chain inside one of these, pour over a little of our cleaner, just give it a little shake like a cocktail. Let's show you how to do it. Safely, carefully, because you don't want to splash this in your eyes. Pour a little bit in. Don't go crazy. You don't need to fill it all the way up to the top, because we're actually going to dispose of most of this. We're just going to put the lid on, and then we're just going to All right, so you can see here that our turpentine is basically going black, and that's just the kind of grease from the chain being dissolved into it. So once it kind of goes like that, basically what we're going to do is just pour out this dirty stuff, pour a little bit more fresh stuff in, give it another shake. We're just going to kind of keep repeating that process until basically the chain is absolutely clean. And the way we'll be able to test that is running it through a little rag. If it leaves a kind of greasy residue behind, then you keep going. When it doesn't, you're all good. Quick little tip, a funnel is really useful when you're pouring out your dirty chain cleaner, because obviously jars are not designed for pouring, and that just kind of helps prevent any spillages. A little bit more fresh cleaner, and then again, we're just gonna shake it up. Yeah, so you can see basically now that this terps is not getting quite as dirty as the one before. Obviously there's less grease and oil to come out of it. And that's what we're looking for, basically. We're just looking to get all of that grease out until basically there's none left on the chain. It's as simple as that. Okay, so we've done our second cocktail shaker in the cleaning fluid. So what we're gonna do now is pull the chain out, give it a quick wipe with a clean rag, and basically see how much kind of oily residue there still is. If there isn't too much, if there isn't really any, then you're good to go. If there is still lots, then another bath of terps. Try again. Let's check it. Gonna pull it out, just gonna grab a little section of it and then just wipe it down with the rag. See how we get. I mean, actually that's pretty clean really, to be fair. So we're probably good to go with that chain. What we'll do now quickly is run it through a little jar of this methylated spirits, which will then evaporate really quickly and leave us with a really clean chain, because obviously we don't want to put turpentine into our wax mix. So just to visually demonstrate, you can see here in our first jar of cleaner on the right how dirty it is. Obviously that's all the grease and oil that came out of that factory chain. And then here, this is our second one. Actually, it's pretty clean. So not much more has come out. That's a good indication that the chain's pretty clean, ready for waxing. Right, so at this point we have basically a perfectly clean chain, and you can kind of tell that it is so clean because it has a kind of, and obviously it's really, really clean. You can look at it and see it's really clean, but it also should have a kind of like a rattly feel because there's no grease or lubricant kind of in the joints muffling those sounds. So that's kind of what you're looking for. And at this point we are ready to wax, but a quick tip before we go any further is that basically like this is obviously a bit of a hassle, but this is kind of like the last time I'm gonna have to do this with this particular chain unless it gets like absolutely filthy, like you run through a massive puddle of oil on the road and it gets oil all over it again. I've also got some chains off my bike. This has come off my Giant TCR. So this is an already waxed chain. This one's a little bit dirty, but it only has kind of dirty wax on it in a sense. And so you don't need to run, I won't need to run this one through the kind of chemical bath again, because what will happen here is the wax will just melt off into the wax pot. And yes, that's gonna make my wax like a little bit dirty, but the kind of amount of wax that's on this chain is actually very small. So it's not really a big deal. And it isn't gonna prevent new wax from sticking to this one. And it's a really good idea if you're going to be doing any waxing like this to do more than one chain at a time, because it is a bit of a faff, as you can see from watching this video. Now we are ready to wax, and you can see here that I have a very ingenious tool fashioned from a kebab skewer, which I have bent into a little U shape, and I threaded our chain onto it. Here's one I made earlier, and we're going to use this to basically dip our chain into the wax, and so that we'll have something to fish it out of, so you don't have to shove your hand into molten wax. That would be a bad idea. And if you're wondering how I did it, here we go. We've got our fresh kebab skewer tool. We're going to take our chain. We're basically going to unfurl it. Obviously, at this point, if there's a kind of quick link on it, don't forget to keep hold of that. And we're just going to thread the chain through the end, put it on, and then again, just going to thread it through the end and just keep repeating that process all the way to the end of the chain. And that's kind of basically it. We're here, this is our little waxing station that we've set up in the workshop. You can see this is my personal chain waxing slow cooker. When you are immersive waxing your chain, you can of course use branded stuff from the likes of Silka or Molten Speed Wax. Ceramic Speed also does some as well. And again, yeah, like Silka will do their own branded kind of wax melting pot, which has like a little stand you can hang the chain over. Like, they're very convenient, but I think they're a little bit expensive. This one cost me about £15 off Amazon, and I'm just using like a big bag of food grade paraffin wax that I got off Amazon in 2021. So, you know, I've used half of it in about 5 years, and this probably, I don't know how much, I can't remember how much it cost me, but probably all in, I spent maybe 30, 40 pounds on this stuff. So not much at all. And, you know, it's not gonna be maybe as efficient or maybe last as long as the branded stuff. You might save a couple of watts with Silka or Ceramic Speed Wax, and it might last for a little bit longer, but in my experience, this stuff's been absolutely great. And if you just want to get into it for the kind of like least spend possible, this is a good way to go. All right, so we have our chains on our little kind of swisher tools, and all we're going to do is just lower them carefully into this wax. Obviously, you know, it kind of goes without saying, but this is molten wax, it's very hot. Don't smash yourself with it, otherwise you will get burned. Again, we want to do a few at a time, just because that saves us a load of hassle, rather than having to, you know, get all this equipment out every other day and try and do so. Every time you kind of, you're going to wax any of them, get all the chains off all your bikes and do them. Now what we're looking for is to get this wax up to 93 degrees. That's what Molten Speed Wax recommends. That's 93 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough, basically. I think if you go any higher than that, you know, it might kind of like damage the wax or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, that's what Molten Speed Wax recommends. We're going to put them in early with the wax when it's not all melted, because basically that allows the chains to heat up as all the wax melts. And then what should happen is the chain will expand slightly and allow wax to get into the middle of the kind of rollers and pins where you really, really want it. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to pop in our thermometer, keep an eye on this, and then, you know, we can put our lid on there just to save a little bit of energy, but we can see on the thermometer that it's kind of up around 60 degrees right now. There's a little bit of solid wax still left in there. Just have to be patient. Go make yourself a coffee. Once it does hit that 93 degrees point, you'll be ready to basically swish it around, which should help kind of get any air bubbles out of the middle of the chain and make sure the wax is inside every pin, every roller, all covering the chain, and you'll be ready to pull it out and let it dry off. Next one out, we'll just, again, let it kind of drip off. You don't need loads of excess wax on the outside of the chain. That's not the goal. Bring it over, hang it up. So obviously we've taken our chains out of here. We still have molten wax in there. Basically what you can do is just leave this to cool down and solidify. And then when you need it next time, get it out, switch it back on again, put the chains straight back on top. You probably, like I said earlier, you probably won't need to clean them again unless they get absolutely filthy and oily. But obviously if you want to discard this wax and have fresh wax at any point because you just want to refresh your stuff, now's the time to get rid of this. You can pour it into kind of like an old ice cream container and dispose of it responsibly. Okay, so we have let our chains cool down and dry, and you can now see that they are stiff as a board because obviously all of the links are full of solid wax. So basically you are now ready to put these on your bike, but what you do need to do is just break the links. Now you can do that one by one, but that's going to take you forever. So what I recommend doing is finding like a piece of metal or something like that, and you just take the chain in your hand and just run it over, and you'll come see the little wax flakes just kind of flying off it. And then once you've got all of those links broken, give it a couple of runs over that. You can now see it's like nice and flexible again, and you'll be able to get this back on your bike with your quick link. Now, quick little tip, when you put this back on your bike, the first kind of couple of minutes of riding, this chain is going to keep breaking off wax just like that. And so your kind of shifting will feel a little stiff. Don't adjust your shifting, don't worry, just kind of easy pedal for a couple of minutes. It will work its way out and you will have a smooth, clean running drivetrain. All right, so there you go. This chain is now waxed and ready to go back on my bike. Okay, so once you've got your chain back on your bike, then obviously, you're good to ride. You can ride for around sort of 300-400 kilometers in dry weather before you'll need to re-wax. If you do go for a wet ride, then you probably are going to need to reset your chain either by putting it back in the hot pot with wax, or what you can do is use some wax-based drip lube to top it up again. Now, this stuff won't get your chain in as good a condition as if you put it back in the wax bath, but it's a good way of extending the kind of like interval between the fact that you have to take the chain off the bike and burn for a quick link. So get yourself some good stuff. So if you made it this far and you think that looks like quite a lot of hassle when you can just obviously drip lube wax onto your chain or use the oil, then you might be wondering why I do this. Well, there are 3 reasons, and basically like lower friction, so you get a few more watts out of your drivetrain, or a few less watts are lost to drivetrain friction. But then the big 2 are kind of cleanliness, how clean it keeps your drivetrain. Like oils attract so much dirt and it's a real pain to clean all that stuff off, whereas the kind of solid wax that it dries to is dry, so it doesn't pick up dirt, makes it much easier to keep your bike clean. And then 3, that cleanliness and the lack of contamination means your drivetrain will last a lot longer. So if you've got a really expensive bike with expensive parts, or even if you've got a cheap bike and you just want to make it last as long as possible, then this is one way of extending the lifetime of your drivetrain. And if you keep on top of this and you kind of waxed your chain all the time and you were really good with your maintenance, like I can't remember the last time I wore out a chain or a cassette, for example. It's a really, really good way of saving money. So that's probably the best reason to do it. All right, well, there you go. That is how I wax my chains and why you should consider waxing yours. But as always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And in the interests of saving money, you might like this video on some of the best AliExpress stuff that I've bought.